March. They are still looking for a new manager, but we have gotten some updates on the story, and here they are. John Haben reported that the Mets are expected to hire an external option, implying that the rumored candidacy of bench coach Eric Chavez and now Mets associate Carlos Beltran as unlikely hires as the Mets' next manager. Sources closer to David Stearns insist that he is truly serious about considering a first-time manager for the position if free agent Brewers manager Craig Counsell is not interested in joining the Mets. Other sources with the Brewers believe that Counsell will most likely stay with Milwaukee, but is willing to listen to other offers if the price is right. Another name mentioned recently has been the emergence of Blue Jays first base coach Mark Brudzinski, who has been on the Mets' radar for the last week, yet to interview for the position. Joel Sherman of the New York Post also reported that the Mets were interested in interviewing Rangers associate manager Will Venable, but he declined to do so. Other media names mentioned include former Giants manager Gabe Kepler, Padres first base coach Ryan Flaherty, Astros bench coach Joe Espada, and 2023 WBC United States team manager Mark DeRosa, among others. The Mets will be hiring their fifth manager in the last 7 years after parting ways with Buck Showalter less than a month ago.
I think we kind of figured that the Mets were going to be looking external, and I think that they do have to consider the first-year manager thing at this point in time, just because there is that no-brainer candidate out there right now who has managing experience. They're really going to have a very thorough interview process to find the right guy that fits what they're looking for. And it's, like we talked about, is that, who's going to be making the decisions? Is it going to be David Stearns? Is it going to be the manager that they hire? Like, who's going to have the final say? And if you're forced to use a player like Daniel Vogelbach, like we talked about last week. So that's the thing that I'm looking at. One thing that I find interesting is that the Giants request interview for Bob Melvin. And before Bob Melvin went to the Padres, he was someone I really, really wanted the Mets to get. I thought he, considering what he was working with in Oakland, I thought he did a really good job. There's a guy with managing experience I thought would be a nice fit for the Mets. And then you see him go to a team like the Padres, who also have the very big budget that they work with, have a bunch of star players, and then fail to perform to expectations. And it's like we've seen the Mets do that already. So this time around, I'm not as interested in Bob Melvin as I was before. So that's not one of the names that you mentioned of either. So I do find it interesting how quickly things could change, especially when it comes to a manager. A guy like Buck Showalter goes from being manager of the year to a guy that if you don't step down, you're going to get fired the very next year. I mean, it can be fickle like that with a lot of different managers. So that's why, to me, I think the Mets really should not rush this, because this is a very important decision. You can't keep having, like I've talked about, where you have a manager for 2 years and they're gone. Then you get another one. Then you get another one. It would be nice, like we talked about, if you want that Astros stability, you want teams that are in the playoffs every single year. I mean, you want to have the same guys in the front office, the same manager, because when you're constantly changing things, I mean, it just never works. So that's why I really want the Mets to, again, aim young. That definitely, if they're going to get a first-time manager, they got to aim young. Because, again, if you want to have someone who's got to be here for a long time, it's got to be someone who could work for a long time. We knew that no matter what, even if Buck Showalter did have another solid season, he wasn't going to be a long-term solution. So for me, those are the main things that I'm looking at. I'm just looking for someone who's young, and I don't want the Mets to rush this, because they really have got to have the right guy. Because if it's this constant, like 2 years and gone and all that, it's just, I'm so tired of it. I really, really am.
Yeah, Bob Melvin was somebody that was seen as a possibility the last time go around, but he just went off to San Diego. And yeah, I don't know. I was kind of turned off of Melvin after the transition from Oakland to San Diego. It just didn't look like he was able to control like any egos in that clubhouse whatsoever with the Padres. And you really just did not see that much in Oakland. And, if there was like a big stage test for Bob Melvin, I mean, he really just hasn't succeeded in that sort of thing. Not really much of it being his fault in Oakland. At this point, I mean, we just really haven't seen him succeed under that big light or whatever. And even though he's had some fantastic regular seasons, if you're trying to contend for a World Series, we've seen so far that proven Bob Melvin has not been able to win one. So, and he hasn't been able to get a deep playoff run. And I've seen him get outmanaged before. It's not like I've seen him as this perfect manager, but it was an option, but it just doesn't look like the Mets are interested whatsoever. It doesn't seem like he's on whatever radar. I think it's just a name that gets popped up as someone who possibly could be available after the Padres have struggled for so long.
The fact that we said this at the Stearns conference, that he was at the conference himself, said, I'm willing to hire a first-time manager, kind of gave me the inkling. I said it 2 weeks last show or the week before. That the fact that he went out and said it publicly, like not like, oh, he talked to Heyman or he talked to he said that with a mic in front of a camera for everyone to hear. So that pretty much signaled to me, all right, he's going first time. And if he can get Counsell, obviously that was connections with Milwaukee. But when he said that, it's like, okay, for me, it looked, okay, he's going to try to find his version of Counsell, find the young guy that he can just connect, be symbiotic, and that be it. The fact that Counsell keeps coming up, and that's been ever since he didn't get an extension, that, like, it's just going to be, okay, let's see how long this goes. And that's his first option. And the second, obviously, to go to the first-time guy is the second option. But the fact that he's more willing, it's not like, oh, it's a backup plan of, well, we're shooting for this, and then there's the first-time manager. It's kind of like, hey, they're looking to see what happens with Counsell, but they are kind of focused on getting that first-time guy. And the names that have been out there have been the same kind of guys that we've heard for years. It seems like every time, like Frank said, every time it's a coaching candidacy, the Mets fire a GM or fire a manager, it's always the same few guys' name that consistently get brought up. Thank God Eduardo Perez's name has not been brought up once, because God, no. I do not need to hear that voice anytime, oh, the Mets made a big decision, and I need to hear him talk about, oh, we traded for Juan Soto, oh, we traded for Mike Trout, and he needs to break the game. No. Enough is on ESPN. Leave his ass in the booth. Don't even think about it. We'll see once the official first round of interviews, we'll start getting more. I'm surprised a few names haven't been brought up. Obviously, you saw Heyman wrote that big article in the Post. AJ Hinch was high on that list for some reason, which I don't know if I would go there, but it's better than some. But the fact that it's kind of hopefully going to be, again, like down to Espada and those guys, and then we'll see some other bench coaches that, again, he's going young. He's one of the youngest president of baseball operation people in baseball. At the time when he was hired in Milwaukee, he was younger than Ryan Braun when he took over. So he knows that he'll have a younger. He's looking for the younger guy as well to build the relationship throughout the team. So again, it's just a wait and see. We'll see officially once that first round goes, and see everybody yell about, oh, well, I don't want this guy. I don't want Ron Washington or whatever. Some names were brought up. We'll get to that point. But again, the fact that they are looking first time is probably the way they're going to go.
The names that you mentioned, if there's a first-time manager, I could see the Mets hiring. The guy that sticks out to me, I think, is Mark DeRosa. I feel like that's a guy that I could see them doing. That's just my prediction. Mark DeRosa, there's a couple of things going for him. Number one, all the different teams that he's played for. I think that's something that is always good to have. You know, the more experience and like experience with different organizations, different styles, I think is good. The fact that he wasn't a star player, he was a utility guy that played all over the field, wasn't great, so he could relate to a lot of players much better than the superstars can. You know, I mean, last time we see a very, very good Hall of Fame player who's a good manager. Doesn't happen, and that's in any sport. And the other thing I think Mark DeRosa has going for him is his MLB Network experience, being on a show every single day. It's important to be able to handle New York media and be able to have those press conferences and not make a fool out of yourself and have the media against you and the fans go against you by saying foolish things and constantly having microphones in your face every single day. I feel like Mark DeRosa would be able to handle that. And I think that's actually an underrated thing about being a New York manager that you always have to take in consideration also when you're doing these interviews. So, and you know, like we said, he coached the USA team. You know what I mean? There's not much managing that goes on there. But just for me as a first-year manager on the outside, I could see someone like him getting a job. I'm not saying that I would do it, but I could see that happen.
That was the name that, again, that has been brought up, and I'm like, don't touch him with a 10-foot stripper pole. Like,
why does it have to be a stripper pole? It can't just be a pole?
That's the saying. It's the saying.
I don't think it is.
It's something that's a type of, I wouldn't say Wilpon lull Mets thing, but like, oh, let's get the TV personality. Oh, he's on MLB Network all the time. He managed WBC. You couldn't fuck that up with that much talent. Still found a way to do it. But again, that's the name I'm like again, with the GM last year with Eduardo Rodriguez, I was like, don't touch him. I stay away. Give him an interview because, of course, give everybody at least.
So you don't want Jessica Mendoza? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's another thing. But yeah, just stay away from, again, give him an interview unless he's like blows you away, which we'll never know. But that is a guy that I'm like staying away from because if it goes wrong, there's so many ways for this to be an embarrassment that it's like it could be good. I wouldn't bank on it, but if it goes wrong, there were so many ways to me just trolled and joked. Keep the baseball people that are in the game now. Would I be mad if he got an interview? No, but I'm not taking his candidacy seriously if it's just me.
When I look at external option and I look at a first-time manager, I look at two different types of first-year manager. I look at first-year manager, and then I look at Mets first-year managers. What do I mean by that? The Mickey Callaway, who was a pitching coach, the Carlos Beltran, who was just a player and has never managed before, the Luis Rojas, who was a quality control coach. Those are the type of first-year managers that I'm not looking to go after. I would like there to be a bench coach. I would like it to be someone who has actually been in the game, never was a manager before, but has been close to that certain position before. Obviously, I talked about Joe Espada. I think that would be a perfect fit. Yeah, Mark DeRosa, there's like it's a boom or bust, I'd say, that if you were to hire someone like him, someone who I think that a lot of players respect a lot throughout the game, I think that it might fit the model a little bit better than you think of, like a manager who's kind of just a yes man to a GM or a yes man to a president of baseball operations. But I don't see any possibility where he's kind of like just on the same page of a guy like Stearns. I think that there's just like a little bit of like repellent there, but it's obviously just been a media mention. I don't want them to hire a rookie manager. I want them to hire a first-time manager, if that makes sense. So rookie manager meaning that they had basically their last job had absolutely nothing to do with this job, but it's like, okay, you can strings attach a few different skills there or whatever. Mickey Callaway, he was a pitching coach, and this team is built around pitching with Jacob deGrom and Zach Wheeler. And no, that's just stupid. Eric Chavez, I already talked about him. I think he's actually eventually going to leave for a managerial job at one point. Obviously, Beltran has been a subject of debate ever since that, he was fired before he got to manage a game. But I think that overall, if the Mets were to hire someone external, they're going to hire a first-time manager. It needs to be an actual first-time manager, someone who has been leading up to that job and not just somebody just to be creative and be different. And like I said, the Mickey Callaway and the Carlos Beltran, the Luis Rojas. I mean, we saw when they hired Terry Collins. I mean, Terry Collins was, I believe, the bench coach for somebody. Yeah, he was with like the Astros and the Angels, like in their coaching staff, stuff like that. And then I'm pretty sure, he actually managed the he managed the team that Yoshi Yamamoto's on right now in Japan. That's cool. It needs to be somebody who's young, who's adaptable, and it's just they have to see eye to eye, obviously, with David Stern. And that's literally just the number one thing. We'll see where they go in this direction, because at one point you feel like they got to get it right.